In today's video, we're going to be looking at functional group. So what if you have a compound like this? What will you call this particular compound? This particular compound is known as an alkane. Alkane. And it's called alkane because it has single bonds. Carbon attached to single bonds. Now, this particular alkane is referred to as a pentane, and it's a functional group. It's referred to as pentane. It refers to as pentane because it has 5 carbon atoms. You see, we have 1 carbon here, 2 carbon here, 3 here, 4 here, and 5 here. So we have 5 carbon atoms. And whenever you see 5 carbon atom is referred to as pentane. If you see 4 carbon atom is referred to as butane. When you see 3 carbon atom is referred to as propane. When you see 2 carbon atom is referred to as ethane. When you see 1 is methane. And when you see 6 is hexane. If you see 7 is heptane. 8 is octane. 9 nonane. 10 decane. So what if you have another compound like this, and then you have a double bond here? How do you name this particular functional group? In this case, you do your numbering as 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you see, when you number it like this, you pick the least numbering to indicate your butane. So you say 2 butane, 2 butene. And by the way, this particular functional group is referred to as alkene. And this is 2 butane. And so this particular compound is referred to as an alkene. 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 Right? Now this particular alkene is referred to as 2 butyne. So you see, it's called 2 butyne because we have 4 carbon atoms. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you start your numbering from 1, 2, 3, 4. And you see, the 3 carbon chain, the 3 carbon bond is found right in between carbon 3 and carbon 2. So whenever you find something, like, always pick the least numbering, which is 2 in this case, and we have 2 butyne. Next, what if we have a compound like this? And we have another compound like this. Now, what will you call these 2 compounds? A compound like this and this. Now, both compounds are referred to as cycloalkane. Cycloalkane. Cycloalkane because 1, they are cyclic, and 2, they have just single bond, so they are referred to as alkane. And this particular cycloalkane, for this first one, its name particularly is referred to as, you call it cyclopentane. Cyclopentane. Right? Now for this other one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Therefore, you call it cyclohexane. Cyclohexane. Now, what if you have a compound with alternating double bond? you have a functional group with an alternating double bond. So how do you call this particular functional group? Now this functional group is referred to as an aromatic ring. Functional group with alternating carbon at double bond is an aromatic ring. Now this particular aromatic ring is referred to as benzene. I'm going to be seeing a lot of this benzene in your chemistry course. So what if you have a compound like this? How do you name this particular functional group? Now this functional group is referred to as an alkyl halide, or you can call it a haloalkyl. Alkyl halide is referred to as an alkyl halide, or you can call it a haloalkyl. Now it's called an alkyl halide or a haloalkyl because one, it's carrying a halogen and then it consists of single bonds, so it's called an alkyl halide or a haloalkyl. Let me write it here. R linked to X. This is a generic formula of haloalkyl. And then X is equals to chlorine, bromine, fluorine, and iodine. These are all functional groups. These are all halogens, and this particular functional group is known as haloalkyl. We have a functional group with a generic formula as R, O, and R. Now whenever you have a functional group where oxygen is attached to 2R group, this is referred to as an ether. So it's called an ether. When oxygen is attached to 2R group, those R group could be methane, it could be ethane, it could be methyl, it could be ethyl, it could be propyl. Now ethers are usually polar, and when they are attached to a bigger hydrocarbon chain, they are relatively polar. So what if you have, let's say, 2 methyl group attached to a oxygen? This particular ether is referred to as dimethyl ether. This is a dimethyl ether. Now, what if we have a compound like this with an OH? What will you call this particular compound? An alcohol. And this particular alcohol, to name it, you do the numbering, and the numbering should be done from the carbon chain that carries the OH, right? So we have, because carrying an OH, you start numbering from where the carbon chain carries the OH. You have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is an alcohol, and it's having 4 carbon chain, and the OH is at number 1. The OH can be at any part of the chain, but once it's carrying an OH, it's an alcohol. So now, because it's carrying an OH from number 1, you put it 1 butane. 1 butanol, 1 butanol. This is an alcohol. So what if you have a functional group like this, and then you have a double bond here to an oxygen? This particular functional group is referred to as a ketone. Whenever you have oxygen double bonded to carbon at the middle of the chain, is referred to as, at the middle any inside the chain is referred to as a keto. This is a keto, and this ketone that has double bonded to an oxygen is referred to as a carbonyl carbon. So this particular group is known as a carbonyl. A carbonyl group. Put a group. A carbonyl group. Now the whole of this is a ketone, and this particular carbon that is linked to this double bond is known as a carbonyl carbon or a carbonyl group, right? Now to do the numbering of this particular chain, you start from the side that is closer to the carbonyl carbon. So you start with here, you say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? This is a 5 carbon chain. Now the carbonyl group is on carbon 2, so you put 2 pentanol, 2 pentanol, because it's a ketone. 2 pentanol, right? Now we still have another. What if you have another functional group that is like this? Right? Now in this time it has the double bond. It has a double bond here, and then it has a hydrogen here. Now in this case, you see it's almost similar to this ketone, but then it has it has hydrogen at the end instead of having a carbon at the end like for the case of ketone. So for this particular functional group, they are known as aldehydes. Now aldehydes, this particular aldehyde, to name it, you start also closer to the side that carries the carbonyl carbon. This is a carbonyl carbon here, so we say this is not a carbon. Start here, we say 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Now this is 4 carbon chain, and for an aldehyde you don't do the numbering because the carbonyl carbon is always at the end of the chain. It cannot be found in the middle of the chain, right? So therefore you say butanol. Now you see for a keto, you drop the ending E and put OL, while for an aldehyde you drop the ending E for alkanes and put AL. Now this is a generic form for a keto. A keto has this particular generic form. We have R, right? This is a generic form of keto. Ketos usually carry R, a hydrocarbon chain, and then we have the carbonyl carbon and then R again at the other side. So this R could be methyl, it could be ethyl, it could be propyl, it could be butyl, and so on and so forth. Then we have a generic form for an aldehyde. A generic form for an aldehyde is R. So this is the generic form for an aldehyde. In this case, we have a hydrocarbon functional group. Then we have the carbonyl functional group, the carbonyl carbon, and we have the hydrogen. What if you have a functional group like this? You have an OH at the ending, and then we have a carbonyl carbon right there. Now this particular functional group is referred to as a carboxylic acid. A carboxylic acid. acid. This is a carboxylic acid, and then it has a generic formula of RCOOH. This particular one is referred to as, to do the naming, first you do the counting. Count from the side that carries the carbonyl chain and the OH. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. It's referred to as a butanoic acid. This particular one is referred to as butanoic acid. Butanoic acid. Now, what if you have another carbon chain that is similar to this one? In this case, you have something like this, right? So we have a carbonyl carbon here. We have an O. Then we have a CH3. Now, this particular functional group has a generic form of R, C here. We have double bond, and then we have R. Now you see, in the other case we're having an H, but this case we have R. Now these particular functional groups are referred to as esters. Esters. Now, to name these esters, the ester, the ethanoate part is this part, is the same as this one here. Now, but now it has it has a carbon chain in this other side. So therefore, to name this thing, to name this part, you are going to name this one as ethanoate. Ethanoate. And then this side, because it's a methyl group, you call it a methyl. So to name it, this side, the side of the methyl comes first. This other side comes first before this other one. The naming of this one comes last. So you name it as methyl ethanoate. Compound. What if you have a compound like this? We have a compound R attached to a nitrogen with a double two hydrogen. Now this particular functional group is known as an amine. An amine. This is a generic form and is known as an amine. Now we have a nitrogen bonded to two hydrogen, and then when it's linked to a chain like this, you're known as an amine. Take for instance, if it's linked to a single carbon chain, we have CH3 NH2. Now to name this particular functional group, which is an amine, you say this side is a methyl group, so you say methyl amine. So if it is a ethyl group, if it's an ethyl group, you say ethylamine. If it's a propyl group, you say propylamine. If it's a butyl group, you say butylamine. You understand? And by the way, whenever you see, let's say methane, we have CH4, right, for methane. If it's linked, if methane becomes a functional group like we did at the part 1, you will drop one of the H and link it to another group. Let's say as you drop one H, link it to, and let's say as you drop one H, you link it to an NH2, it becomes methyl instead of methane. Sorry, instead of methane, right? You drop the ANE and put YL, methyl. So in this case, we call it a methylamine. Now, what if you have another functional group as this? We have R linked to this is a generic form, and then we have NH2, sorry, CH2, NH2. Now you see, in this case, we're having a carbonyl carbon at the middle of the chain, and then we're having NH2. This can also be written sometimes. You can see it in some textbook like written like this. You can see it written as RCONH2. Sometimes you can see it written like this in textbooks. Now, in both cases, what do you call this particular functional group? Now, this functional group is referred to as an amide. An amide. The difference between an amide and an amine is the presence of this carbonyl carbon. Now, let's write an example of an amide. If we have something like this, then we have here the carbon that carries the carbonyl carbon, and then we have to name this particular compound, we start a numbering at the side that contains the amine, right? We have 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Now, since it's 4, we know that it's butane, right? Now you add amide, so it's going to be butan. You drop the ending E and add amide, so it becomes butanamide, right? What if you have a functional group so that has a generic form like R, C, triple bond, N? Now, in this particular functional group, is known as nitrile. This particular functional group is known as nitrile. And let's take an example. Let's say we have CH3, C, triple bond, N. Now, to name this particular functional group, we count this side where we count the number of carbon chain. We have 1, 2 carbon chain. So that's ethane. So we're going to write ethane nitrile. This is acid anhydride. Particular name for this acid anhydride is known as acetic anhydride. It's similar to ethyl. It has 2 carbon chain. You see 2 carbon chain, 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's acetic anhydride. So what if you have a functional group like this? We'll have the carbonyl carbon, and then we'll have a halogen at the end. So this particular functional group, you can call it an acid chloride. So if it's attached to, let's say, you will have it here, attached to maybe another halogen, maybe bromine, you can call it an acid bromide, right? So it can be attached to a fluorine, an acid fluoride. It can attach to an iodine, an acid iodide, right? Iodide. Now, what if we have a functional group such as what if we have a functional group like this? And then we have an OH. You know, this we have treated this away an alcohol, right? Now, what if this OH is replaced? Let's say we have a similar functional group, now replaced with an SH. What will you call this kind of functional group? Now, whenever you see SH at the end of a chain, or you see sulfur in the chain, you add the word thiol. Thiol, right? Now this is an alcohol. Sorry. Alcohol. This is an alcohol, and this one is known as a thiol, right? Now, what if you now have an ester, CH3, an ester? We have an ester. Sorry, an ether, not ester, please. This should be T. This EH. This is an ether. This is not an ester. It's an ether. Whenever you see oxygen double bonded to 2R group, is an ether. Now this is an ether. What if you now replace that ether? You replace it. You have C double bond like this. What if you now replace a C double bond like this? Now instead of oxygen, you put sulfur, and then you put C double. You put another carbon atom at the end. Now this particular one is called a thiol ether, right? Now let's take another example. Let's take an instance of an ester. Let's say we have, right? We have an ester like this. This is an ester. Now, what if you replaced one of the oxygen, this particular one? Let's say we put it like this. Put the carbonyl. They'll replace this one with a sulfur. So this particular compound will now be thiol ester. So you see, an alcohol, a thiol. You see, ester, thiol ester, ether, thiol ether. So whenever you see sulfur included in a compound, you put the word thiol. So what if you have a functional group like this? And then we have a double bond here. What if you have a functional group like this? What do you name it? Now this functional group comprises of an alkene, and then an alcohol. Right? And this functional group is known as an enol. Enol. This part, the En part, comes from the alkene, and the Ol part comes from the alcohol. So this particular functional group, we have En from E, and we have Ol from Ol. So we call it an enol. Now what if we have another functional group such as this particular functional group? We have a nitrogen that is bonded to 2R groups. And by the way, even this particular group is also an R group, right? And this particular compound is known as an enamine. Now this E represents for what? For an alkene, right? So it's known as an enamine. Enamine, right? So what if we have a functional group like this? Like this, and then we have a double bond to a nitrogen, and then the nitrogen is connected to an R, just a single R group. This particular functional group is known as an imine, right? Now, what if we have you ever seen something like this? Hydrogen bond to and then to another hydrogen. Now, whenever you see something like this, you will see a oxygen bonded to another oxygen, like the way you see it here. It's referred to as peroxide. Peroxide, like in this case, because it's hydrogen, you call it hydrogen because it's an hydrogen, you call it hydrogen peroxide, right? Now, what if you now have it in an organic compound? We have R. Now, this is the peroxide group, but now in this case, we don't have it attached to 2 hydrogen, but we have it attached to 2 R group. So in this case, you call it organic peroxide. What if you have a functional group like this? We have R group directly attached to nitrogen having O2. This particular functional group is known as a nitro group. A nitro group. So thank you so much for watching, and please, there are still some more functional group that you should know, but these are the most common one you will encounter in your chemistry course. Thank you very much for watching, and please do like, subscribe, share, and drop your comments in the comment section below. And when you subscribe, please don't forget to hit the notification button so that you will be the first to be notified when we drop another video.